All right, so to continue on with the midterm essay assignment, I have included sample historicist criticism-based literary analysis papers on our midterm essay discussion forum. So yes, I set up a whole discussion forum on the midterm essay, and on that on that forum, I have posted sample student essays of midterms that in women in literature courses that I have taught. So these are actual essays that I have graded. I have received from students and graded with the same task that you have. So if you want to see how I grade and if you want to better understand the task that you're supposed to take on for the midterm essay, go read those sample student essays because they will give you a good idea of the task that this you're supposed to accomplish in this midterm. And they will also show you, oh, hey, this level of writing gets a B, this level of writing gets an A. So you have a little bit better understanding of how I grade too. So they're helpful for both reasons. You can also post questions to that discussion forum. Okay. So if you have questions on the essay, or the task, the midterm essay task, go for it, write them there. If you have a sample topic you want to try out and see what your fellow students think, post it there. I can respond, they can respond. We can create a dialogue about your topics. And you can also email me too, so don't forget about that avenue. So anyway, remember that the sample papers are real papers and as such are certainly not perfect. So they're not perfect papers either. They're there to help you understand historical criticism and literary analysis, a historical criticism based literary analysis or an analysis of the work, the one work. Okay, so that you can understand that. And literary elements as well. Okay, to criticize the literary text through an understanding of history and biography, or one or the other, or both. So, as I said, they're not perfect papers. They're student papers. So don't expect perfection. My comments there will point that out to you, that they're not perfect papers, that there are problems. I mean, not that I'm like pointing out problems, but that I'm giving them advice on how to improve their essay the next time around. Think of it that way. My comments are advice on how to improve your writing. There you go. Sometimes, for instance, the statements could be tweaked, right? Or arguments more fleshed out. But the sample paper should be they should at least provide a firmer understanding of how to use historicist criticism to elucidate meaning within a literary text. The sample papers use a thesis statement that presents a particular pattern of meaning or message that the student has located within the literary work and that lists the points the paper will progressively address to trace, develop, and prove this either pattern of message or theme or meaning that the student is tracing through a historical biographical analysis of the work. Therefore, these sample student essays successfully accomplish the analytical task this paper assignment sets. Often, sample essays use clear essay format, like the aforementioned 3.5 academic essay format, to structure their paragraphs and the development of their argument. You don't have to write the 3.5 academic essay format, but that's like an easy way, like an easy formulaic way to follow. But you can certainly do like 2 paragraphs per body per thesis point. You could do 4 thesis points, 3, 2, but do multi-paragraph development for each thesis point. Whatever you do, spend enough time on each thesis point that they're about balanced, okay? Because we don't want like tiny bit on one thesis point and then like a whole bunch on another. That makes it feel as if, okay, this is not like really a 3 or a 4-pronged argument. You should have maybe eliminated one thesis point and found one that is more equivalent in scope. So they're all kind of equally weighted and balanced throughout the paper. All right. I have also posted helps in this week's folder that explain literary analysis more in-depthly and historical criticism as well. Additionally, the checklists for essay format specifics will help you double check that your paper has the components of a solid academic essay, like an introductory paragraph with a hook. A hook is like an interesting way to kind of get the reader involved, from the first paragraph, they want to read more. It's like you might start with a little interesting anecdote or a quote or some way, a question, something that's going to get the reader to want to read more of your essay. Other components that you want to have in your essay or should think about having, definitely a thesis statement, topic sentences that begin each body paragraph and introduce the thesis point that you're going to discuss in that body paragraph, a concluding paragraph that wraps up the paper, gives it a sense of closure, a sense of finality, or parts with some sort of question to ponder more. And usually that concluding paragraph should have like a thesis point recap. So you remind the reader of the thesis points that you used to make your argument, or to prove whatever you set out to prove. And those checklists can also help you revise and edit your essay. All right, paper mechanics. The paper needs to be double spaced and spell checked and have standard margins, no newspaper, tiny little columns to write and make 4 to 5 pages. No, you need to have normal margins, I don't know, what are they, like 1 inch, something like that. And indented, like each paragraph, you want to, because you're double spacing your essay, you don't want to skip extra lines in between each body paragraph. You want to just have the normal, like, double spacing, and then indent each paragraph so that we know that it's the start of a new paragraph. You indent about 1/2 inch the start of each new paragraph. And as I said, between paragraphs, do not skip any more lines than the standard double spacing between regular lines of the essay. Use a clear, readable 12-point font, no large fonts, just to get to be 4 to 5 pages. A readable font would be something like Times New Roman, double space your paper through the double spacing feature in your word processing program. For example, in Microsoft Word, you would check under paragraph in the toolbar, and then you would, go to line spacing and then select double space. In other words, do not use hard returns in between lines to create artificial double spacing, because that throws everything off when I put comments in, and makes the format really difficult to read. All right, the heading of your essay, you just put in the upper left-hand corner of your essay when you begin your name, the course's name, English 221, Women in Literature, my name, Professor Watzak, then the identification, midterm essay, major paper 1, historical criticism, text analysis, and then the date, and then after that heading, you'll skip a line, and in the center of the essay, you will center your title, the actual title for your midterm essay. You'll have your own title, okay, in addition to the, the assignment designation. All right, no plagiarism. Do not plagiarize, all right? The Dropbox automatically checks all papers through a professional plagiarism tracker. If you have any questions on what plagiarism is or Mercer County College's policies towards plagiarism or my policies towards plagiarism, please reread the document called Plagiarism in the course handouts folder on our course website. It's also included in the course syllabus, and you had to answer that quiz at the beginning of the class that said you will not plagiarize. So plagiarize means you don't use other people's words without putting them in quotation marks, and you don't try to steal someone else's paper and represent it as your own. All of this is theft. So if you use somebody else's words, you always have to put them within quotation marks and then cite the source of that information in your works cited page. Okay? It's got to be clear. And within the essay itself, you've got to identify what the source is. So somehow, like in a parenthetical citation, you have to include the author's name and the page number that you found that whatever you're quoting on, if it has a page number. If you haven't, and you include the author's name in the parenthetical citation, unless of course you've introduced the author's name in the sentence itself. And And if you have only one work by that author, then you don't have to identify the particular title of the work if it's in your works cited page. Although the first time you're referencing a work, usually you will include the title and the author's name in the body of the paper so that we understand the context that you're taking the quote from. Alrighty, so don't plagiarize, because if you plagiarize, remember, I have to fill out an academic integrity violation form on the incident, in which you committed plagiarism, and I have to turn that into the academic integrity committee at the college, and you'll get a 0 for the assignment. It's really hard to come back from a 0. And if it's your first infraction, that's all that happens. But if it's your second, then sometimes you might actually have to, the college might impose a penalty of, it could be, appearing at a hearing on the incident, and sometimes they even expel you from the university for a time period. So don't plagiarize. Just don't do it. All right. MLA formatting for research and quotations not your own. Remember that students, you need to use MLA or Modern Language Association format to document information that is not your own. In other words, quotations, paraphrases, and pieces of research and unique opinions. I've included 2 useful links in the written out version of the midterm assignment. So you can look at those links for more information on MLA format, including complete directions on how to document sources by internal parenthetical citations, which I already mentioned. That's when you're including the author's name and the page number, or just the page number if you've already included the author's name in the sentence, and the works cited page that includes the full bibliographic information for each source that you cite within your paper. So one of the sources that you can go to is the owl.english.purdue.edu site, where you would look up the MLA format, and that is the online writing lab in the English department at Purdue University. That's what that hyperlink will take you to when you click on it in the midterm essay assignment. And then the other one I've included is wisc.edu/writing/handbook/doc/MLA.html. That's another source you could look at. Do not forget to include full bibliographic information in a works cited page at the conclusion of your paper for any works from which you use quotations and or paraphrases or other such information within your midterm essay. Do not forget to include page numbers to indicate where in a particular literary work you have extracted your piece of information or quotation. So if that work has a page number, you include it right after the quotation you use or the paraphrase. Standard MLA format is available again through those hyperlinks that I showed you, and you will use that to document this information. In other words, if you're quoting from page 90 of The Awakening, well, we haven't read The Awakening yet, but I don't know, page 90 of the Awakening, that's an example. The parenthetical citation indicating the location of this quote would read, quote, in parentheses, 90. Providing, of course, your paper has already identified that the quote does in fact appear in The Awakening. If the paper has not identified the story location of this quote, your citation would read, in parentheses, Chopin, space, 90. As long as your paper does not cite any other works by Chopin. If your paper cites more than one work by, for example, Chopin, and you have not identified the particular work when you're citing material from The Awakening, then a parenthetical citation of The Awakening material would read, in parentheses, Chopin, comma, Awakening, space, 90, close parentheses. All right, if the support of your paper references a line from a poem, do not forget to include line numbers to indicate from where in a particular poem you have extracted your piece of information or quotation. Standard MLA format will document this information. In other words, if you are quoting from, for instance, line 8 of the Sylvia Plath poem Metaphors. We haven't read Sylvia Plath yet, but we will. We'll get there. I'm just using this as an example of how to use a line number. The parenthetical citation indicating the location of this quote would read, in parentheses, 8. So open parentheses, 8, the number 8, and then close parentheses. Providing, of course, your paper has already identified that the quote does, in fact, appear in the poem Metaphors. If the paper has not identified the poem as the location of this quote, your citation would read, in parentheses, in quotation marks, metaphors. So metaphors is in quotation marks within the parentheses, and then you have a space, and then you have 8, which is the line number.